an introduction. So this is acting city manager. This is the Invisio, our dashboard that we look at for works in.
Yeah, yes, it is, and I will ask the General Manager of Corporate Services to do an introduction.
Perfect, thank you. There we go.
Yes, as you may be aware, we've been working with PMH consultants for the Invisio software. And over the past year, we've worked out a lot of the bugs. It's been an easy implementation. We've had the support we've received from the consultants has been excellent. It's been a different implementation than many financial. It isn't a financial software. It's totally different. But the training that we've got has been exceptional. And Invisio itself, as you may be aware, is all about our strategic planning. And 2 falls ago, when the council sat down and identified the strategic goals and the strategic objectives, administration went back and worked on all the tactical strategies or the work plans. It's been unique. Of all the corporations I've worked in, quite often we come up with strategic goals and objectives, but they kind of sit on a shelf after a time and fall through the cracks, whereas this doesn't allow us to do that. Both the consultants are on top of us, and the city manager is very vigilant, and it makes for an easy oversight over all the strategic objectives and the work plans. So we're moving forward in the second year. We will add 1 or 2 things to the software itself. There's always improvements that can be made, but there's the presentation by Philip here today isn't unusual to have after a year to talk to council. Just to give you a high-level overview of the software itself and what it has to offer and where we're going with it. So on that note, I will leave it to Philip here to explain further.
So, and just to be clear, this is software that the staff use.
Staff uses, yes.
And we get reports. We do not have access to it. So this is just
Correct.
an introduction.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Very good. Thank you, Worship and elected councillors. My name's Philip Hicks. I'm the founder of PMH Insights. I may have a funny accent, but I'm based out of Edmonton, Alberta. Today, just wanted to go through, we call it a council induction to integrated planning and reporting. So for today's session, we're going to be focusing on, if we could bring up that slide, thank you. And there we go. Going to walk you through first, an introduction, integrated planning, the tracking, monitoring, governance and reporting that happens behind the scenes that filters up to deliver on your strategic plan. For other councils that I've presented to in a similar fashion, it really helps to build that trust and confidence between the elected officials and the administration to understand there's a full logistics behind your strategic plan, how it cascades right down to the individual employees that are effectively carrying out your political will. So, without further ado, purpose, to provide an update on the Invisio and integrated planning software implementation. As David was just saying before, we've just completed that first full year, and now into year 2, we're going to combine today's presentation with some of the highlights you're going to be seeing moving forward through this year with the updated strategic plan, now implementing key performance indicators and metrics, and we'll be talking about that, and then getting into things like public dashboard to further enhance that full transparency back out to the community as to what the administration and councillors actually delivering. Throughout the year, both Diane and David have been excellent to work with and really pioneering, and we use the City of Fort St John as a reference site many times to other municipalities across British Columbia for their forward thinking when it comes to integrated planning and reporting and how transparent the administration is.
Could you repeat that? Just kidding.
Yeah.
Hey, you got us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is one of these areas where we do see, and as a business, we operate all across Canada, the US, and Australia. And we get the pleasure of working with lots of different municipalities, but this is certainly one municipality that we've seen that really embraces that whole transparency and accountability piece. And it's really important that we do have leading municipalities that can really lead the way to show other municipalities how it can actually be done.
Thank you.
So, also part of my objective today is to further educate you as to how your current municipality plans, tracks, monitors and reports, but we'll also be showing how you're going to be progressing through this year and improving on what's already been set. Okay, so the challenge. Local government is a very complex and unique organisation. Unlike the private sector where we may exist to do just one thing, as a local municipality we exist to do many, many different things. So when it comes to developing plans and executing on those plans, it can be a real challenge, especially when you're using things like Word documents, spreadsheets. How do you get that clarity and alignment and visibility across the whole organisation? As David said earlier, how do you ensure that nothing falls through the cracks? And this is part of what our implementation, the work we've been doing with your administration over the last year has really been improving moving forward. So, as you can probably appreciate, being elected officials, sometimes it can very much feel like the battlefront, right? So we're out there with the community. They've got many different demands and requests coming through, but how do we actually coordinate and align all of those initiatives and activities that we're doing? Sorry, do we need a moment or are we okay?
No.
Yes, okay. So part of that is ensuring that ideally, if we can get to utopia, that we have all of that clarity, alignment and visibility all nicely tied together. But to get to that, we need to make sure that we invest in people and systems and processes to make sure that we have all of that alignment and transparency set up. So conceptually, how do we get there? If we start and we just reference the top left-hand corner, this is what I refer to as an integrated planning and reporting framework. So we need our planning, we need our measuring, and we need our reporting outputs. So from your top level vision and mission and values, we then underneath that, you set up your strategic plan, your goals, outcomes or objectives. From that layer, we need to develop our strategies, and then from there, we go down into our corporate or operational planning, down to individual work plans. You're one of the few municipalities that truly embraces this, going right down to individual work plans, which is excellent to see. And that really means that you're embracing that full accountability right from the very top of the administration down to every individual that works across it, which is excellent. Part of what we'll be transitioning into this year is more around the measuring of the performance. So being able to identify community-based outcomes and key performance indicators, or that's what KPIs refer to. And then as we get down into areas, levels of service, being able to identify and capture and measure against our service levels to the community as well, right down to individual measures across the organisation. So if you've got those three layers covered, reporting in theory should be a breeze. So we're not having to then go to 200 different Excel spreadsheets and Word documents to collate all of this. So through Diane over the last year, you would have started to get some glimpses as to some of the reporting that can come out of Invisio, and I'll walk you through some of those further enhancements that you'll actually get to see throughout this year. I did forget to mention at the start, I'm more than happy to answer questions as we go through, so please sing out if you have any questions and I'm more than happy to address those. So, the old framework from last year, I'll just bring this up before we move into the new framework. From our top level strategic goals and strategic objectives, underneath that you may or may not have had a lot of visibility. We had a layer called project and activities, and then down to tactical strategies. This year, just sort of rearranging and listening to feedback from administration, we'll be working from those top level strategic goals and strategic objectives through our tactical strategies down into work plans. So to give you a practical example of that, if one of your goals was to, say, reduce crime across the community, go one step even higher, maybe you had a goal around you wanting a safe community. One of your objectives underneath that might be to actually reduce crime. Then the tactical strategy layer is really, well, how can we do that? Is it through education, prevention, enforcement? But my question that I'd be pushing back to yourselves as elected councillors and also the Mayor is saying, well, of those strategies, which ones are actually working? and let's recognise success and let's reinforce that. But at the same time, if we're implementing strategies that aren't delivering the desired results, let's reallocate those resources. So make sure that we're not reinforcing a failing commitment on an ongoing basis. We want to be able to identify that and get clarity on that as quickly as possible. And then underneath that, the work plans, and that's where all the heavy lifting gets done across the administration, executing on those tactical strategies, ultimately all aligning back up through to your strategic plan. Okay, so as far as the new planning framework, and it might be a little bit easier to see on your screens in front of you there, but from those top level goals, we've got our strategic objectives, our tactical strategies, and then going down into our work plans. So this visual is demonstrating to yourselves here that it is an integrated planning framework and everything is aligned. So we're ensuring that for every tactical strategy, there is associated work plans that link up through to your objectives and ultimately your goals as well. So when you're going about making some of your planning at the very top level of the organisation, it does have a ripple effect that goes all the way down to the administration to carry that out. Typically, with the councils that we work with, you're very much focused to that goal and strategic objectives level. Why would you necessarily want to see the lower level detail? Well, maybe people are asking you questions across the community. The detail is in the system there, and whether you go through administration to access that or whether you make it available through our public dashboard, which I'll get to a little bit later on, you have there. So, and I sort of jumped ahead there a little bit. So that top level view is very much geared around that top level strategic plan from your goals and your strategic objectives. And then underneath that, at an operational level, implementing those tactical strategies and the work plans associated with those. Okay. Like with any type of planning, we want to make sure that there's accountability, so it goes on the SMART principle: specific, measurable, agreed, realistic, with a time frame. So everything that's inputted into Invisio has to be measurable in some way, shape or form. Okay, so many councils that I've worked with in the past, we come up with those great big broad brush statements that we want at the top level goals. But right when we get down to the nitty-gritty of it, we need to make sure that our work plans are measurable and we've got clear goalposts for our administration to kick through. Okay, so with the planning content set up in Invisio and now moving into year 2 and implementing some of those changes with your updated strategic plan, we want to make sure that from a tracking and reporting perspective, this just doesn't sit on the shelf to look like another pretty document. Okay, so within the system, we'll be talking about, and I'll walk you through today, how the tracking and reporting actually works. But from a visual perspective at the top level, you'll be able to see the overall progress as to how you're tracking towards achieving each of your goals across your strategic plan. And this aggregates from each of the layers below within your planning framework. From an administration perspective, and this is one of the unique things within a municipality, is we have a strategic plan that is set by council that our administration has to go about delivering on. But at the same time, we operate on a day-to-day basis based on our departments and our services that we provide. So within the system, it does give visibility by department. So if there's managers that are coming up to present reports from each of their departments and how they're tracking for the year, that's available and built in as well. Right down to the individual level, where you can see the performance of individual staff across the administration. Okay, so now we get into the monitoring side of things, and unfortunately, being a local municipality, we're subject to the environment. So whether it's fire, floods, snowstorms, all these types of things, ultimately that will take us away from what our original plans were at the start of the year. So our plan is the best guess moving forward from what we've known from previous years and the experience around the table. So we do need to make sure that our monitoring does reflect what is actually preventing us from achieving our plan. So one of the pitfalls that we've seen in a lot of organisations is if we just develop a plan at the start of the year and we're not regularly reviewing those plans and updating them, the further the variance is to the plan, the greater the decline in credibility to the plan, and you lose people's focus very quickly. So one of the things that we really encourage organisations to do moving forward is to have a very agile planning approach and process. And we've been working with your administration and senior managers on a monthly and quarterly basis, making sure that plans are being updated and reviewed on a regular basis to ensure that the reality and the plan is closely aligned as possible. So we don't get to the end of the year and go, that plan's irrelevant anymore. We want to make sure that it's constantly updated and maintained, and your administration and senior staff have been doing an excellent job working with us to make sure that that agile planning approach is implemented on an ongoing basis. From an accountability perspective and the governance side of things, we want to make sure that we've got the appropriate processes to support a system like Invisio internally. So, by way of explanation, the way that it works from an administration side of things, individual work plans and tactical strategies and strategic goals and objectives are reported on in a set sequence. So what it means is those people that are doing all the heavy lifting at the work plan level, they get alerts and reminders to come and put in their updates, and then it gets reviewed at the next level and the next level. So ultimately, by the time it lands on, say, council's desk, it's had 2 or 3 layers of review prior to it coming to council or becoming available from out to the public. So that process really reinforces good governance behind the reporting process within Invisio and how it's set up. Okay, so from a reporting perspective, the feedback from what we've seen, not just here but other councils that we work with, transparency is really key, not just to council but also the community. Accountability of administration to make sure, and it should be from my experience, sort of that firm but a little bit uncomfortable between both sides, to ensure that we have the systems in place to ensure that your strategic plan is being delivered on, but at the same time we've got that accountability and we've got a defined planning framework, so it's not going to be changing day to day, week to week. From a legislative and compliance perspective, that's really important, so that when we're getting down into that work plan level, so we've got regulatory activities where we have to publish certain plans or budgets and those types of things that may have to go off to the province, it's actually captured and not forgotten and doesn't magically just slip through the cracks. From a lot of other municipalities too, they've used this as a requirement to source funding, where they've actually been able to demonstrate their integrated planning approach and how it's going to be tracked and measured and monitored on an ongoing basis to source funding from the province and from the federal government, which has been working really well. Improving the council's financial position, also it's an efficient and a cost-effective thing to do. Our statistics analysis is that you actually reduce about 80% of staff time in tracking and reporting when you've implemented systems to support this, and getting away from Word, Excel type spreadsheets that are very disjointed. So, how do we demonstrate progress? And this leads into some of the enhancements that we're going to see this year. So if we're trying to demonstrate progress, we want to be able to identify operational efficiencies and effectiveness, customer service levels out to the community, that transparency piece as well. However, there's many challenges to get that. We've got our existing workload, ongoing changes. If you've got executive leadership team staff changes, change management ongoing, you've got a planning cycle that just continues to go regardless of what's happening in your existing environment. So there's lots of things that can slow us down in being able to achieve this. So what we're looking to implement this year on top of your planning framework is a new key performance indicator dashboard. So this will give you further analytics that you'll be able to review as council that will integrate into your existing planning framework. So if you want to be able to identify within, say, some of your strategic plans around economic development and these types of areas, you may ask administration to source certain statistics that you may want visually displayed within your strategic plan. And this may help influence or direct council as to how your future planning is going to take place as well. The other thing when it comes to your key performance indicators, quite often as a municipality, I break it down into 2 simple things that we do. We either provide a project, which is measured by a start and end date. So do we build that bridge? Do we implement that new program or service? But then when it comes to providing services to the community, it's not based normally by a start and an end date. So we can't, on a day-to-day, we can't foresee how many people are going to come in and submit building applications for commercial, residential, these types of things. But what we can do is track and report back to council and the community as to how much of those services are being consumed. Just like if we're getting into recreational services. We don't know how many people are going to come into the local rec centre and gym, but we do need to know how many people are coming in. Is that trending up or down? And that should be influencing your decision making as to where you're going to be allocating funding on an ongoing basis as well. So not only will you have that integrated planning framework to be able to track your goals, objectives, tactical strategies down to work plans, we'll now be integrating the new key performance indicators into those dashboards as well for you to have visibility of that. Likewise as well, those visuals will also become available directly on the strategic plan reports within Invisio on an ongoing basis. So part of this today is trying to make you aware as to what's possible. So if you're asking administration, you've had a glimpse as to what a few of those things may be possible that you can get out, so you can give that direction to administration as far as the setup is concerned and the information that you may like to see. So from there, once you've got your ducks in a row, typically we go out to the community and allow this to be fully transparent, and it's up to you as to how many layers that you may make this available out to the community. Is it just reporting on those strategic goals? Do you want to go down one level further to your strategic objectives? Do you want to go down to the tactical strategies, etc.? The fact that your organisation's already been through the last year of setting up and reporting through Invisio, I think you're in a really healthy position to leverage what work you've already done within that and make it available out to the public so they can see this either on an offline or a real-time mode, and they can see how the municipality is tracking against their overall strategic plan. So just a couple of examples there as to what you may be able to look at or want to look at, and having that set up across your existing website, and we can plug that straight in. So you've already got the foundation set and built in within Invisio. This just gives you a great opportunity now to leverage this and make it available out to your general public as well, so they can see from a performance perspective how both council and administration are executing on the strategic and operational plans. As David was mentioning earlier, this is very much not based on a pure financial report. It's all good and well to look at a financial report and say, oh great, we're on track for budget this year, but what did we actually achieve? So the reports within Invisio, you'll be able to generate, or say you or the administration will be able to generate and make available over the web to actually demonstrate the accomplishments of the administration. And where we've found this is really handy is the general public sometimes may have a very short memory. They forget what happened last month or last quarter, and this can give them a full snapshot, whether it's over the entire year or the entire term of the elected council, as to all of the accomplishments of the administration and how that's contributed towards achieving the overall strategic plan. So those are the key areas that I wanted to at least bring to your attention and look at today. More than happy to answer any particular questions or topics that you may want to go through now.
General Manager for Corporate Services.
Yeah, with the last PowerPoint slide that you just had up, I don't know if we can get it up there, but what it does, one of the features that he showed me this morning that we'll get to is that the public, we have our vision and mission statements, and the public can look at that and say, okay, that's a good motherhood statement, but what we will accomplish here is that they can click on any one of these 5 strategic goals, and then you double click on it. It shows you what the 5 or 6 strategic objectives are to those goals, and then they can scale down for the specific work plans. So this is what we're actually doing and how far along we are with the whole program. So that part of it will be valuable for the public, and of course for council and for the city manager. The continual, it's almost real-time updating in many respects on each of the work plans, so that the city manager and the general managers have confidence that things are progressing, and that if there is a major disruption, that we can address it quicker than we normally would. Than we normally would have been knowledgeable of or advisable of. So actually, I thought this presentation was going to be a little bit longer, but you could have spoken a little slower, maybe. But there's a lot to this. There's a lot more that we can add on to this software. But I think we're we're doing this in a very measured and responsible way, and making sure everybody's comfortable, from the managers to the directors, to the GMs, and up to the city manager, and ultimately to council. So that's where we are with this.
Good. So with those, the 5 that would go on to the website, how far down, were you going to the individual work plans level?
Yeah, you can go right into the work plans, specifically, and we can get into, I think, the tactical strategies, let's see, and the work plans are a little more detailed, almost like the steps to those tactical strategies, so that it's very practical in a sense, and we can show progress against each step, as opposed to not having 4 or 5 steps and you're just saying 20%. Well, what does that mean? Well, you can be more visible or accountable that way.
Perhaps just going back one step there, it's up to the choice of the administration, yourselves as the elected officials, as to how far down you allow that visibility to go. So you might just launch it just to show progress at the very top level, strategic goals, but the system does allow you to go to make it available as low as you like, from the strategic objectives, tactical strategies, down to the individual work plans. So that's something that you can discuss with your administration as to how much of that you want to make available out to the public.
Right. And so we just finished updating our strategic plan, and it's now gone to staff to develop the strategies, and the tactical work plan part of it. That hasn't come back to us yet.
Not yet, it will.
Right. And so maybe we can have a conversation at that time about how far down we go, because that's when we go into the weeds and pop right back out again. So, and I had written down a question here, and I'm sure we've all been through this, where we go into a store and our mother always said to us, "Look, but don't touch." Is it possible for council to go in and look at this, but we can't make any changes to it?
I think that's possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, if we were to get a phone call or an email
Yep.
at 11:30 at night, because that happens, asking, about, what's going on, we could actually go in and have a conversation, like, why aren't they doing X, Y, Z? Well, we have to wait for the ground to thaw.
Yep. And there might be some training opportunities to give you access to that, where quite often, from a planning and reporting perspective, if someone's asking you as the mayor and just saying, "Look, what are you doing about roads?" You can do a keyword search, and in a report it'll draw up everything where that keyword exists. So whether it's around enforcement, prevention, education, any of those sort of keywords or hot topics, you can have all of those planning elements drawn straight back into one report within Invisio.
Right.
So that's something that may be of interest.
It is an interest, and so when we look at those, like when we look at our strategic plan and the work plan and everything that goes with it, and when I talk about us diving into the weeds, we're getting into operations, and really we do it once to determine that there's been reasonable interpretation of the policies we've created. Other than that, it really should be just look but don't touch.
Yeah, a lot of the other municipalities, I guess, the level of resistance that I've seen between administration and council has been that they spend all the time in the weeds and stop looking and stop giving that direction from the higher level. So as long as there's that healthy balance and understanding, I think that can work really, really well.
Okay. I'm not sure who queued up first. Well, David, you're on.
I think she did. More.
Okay.
I did.
Acting city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just wanted to reiterate that what the Invisio program has done for staff is to allow us to define and operationalize council's strategic goals. and also to break those high-level strategies into actionable items, which we can now start to track and monitor. So with regard to the KPIs, one of the things that we're planning to do, in addition to the obvious financial key performance indicators that we'll be looking at, is to take the work that we're doing with the community on social policy, which has given us 8 areas that we're measuring, including economic development and health and wellness and activity, happiness, those things, use those as key performance indicators to measure the success of these strategic goals. And during that conversation and the conversation that we have when we come back to you with this year's strategy revisions, we can determine what your objectives are around communicating the details through our webpage on the tool that Invisio offers. So that decision about how deep we go will be a decision that we'll make together.
Yep, good. Director of Legislative and Administrative Services.
So just for clarification purposes, staff does update this report every 2 weeks, and it is on the agenda, and it does provide that diving down into the weeds as for each project. This will just be an additional component that allows the public to actually go on there and, as David alluded to, look at it in real time.
Okay, good. Councillor Zabinski.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Philip, for your presentation. So you'd mentioned we are sort of like the poster child for this. We're using it in the right way based on other municipalities that are using it. So what are they doing wrong that we're doing right so that we could give the staff kudos for that? Because it seems that if we're the poster child, we should give them accolades.
That's a really good point that you raised there. Look, I've had the privilege of visiting many municipalities across Canada, and I think what's unique about this municipality, the leadership group as a whole, is very engaged in doing this. There's many other municipalities that I've worked with where they've asked us to come in and the senior leadership team just say, wash their hands of it and walk away and think the problem's solved. So the fact that they're engaged on an ongoing basis and leading from the front and by example is exceptional here. It may sound very simple, but quite often the simple things in life, if not done properly, get us undone. So to the senior leadership team, both with David and Diane and the rest of the leadership team have been excellent to work with, and from my team as well. I've only had really healthy, positive remarks coming back. So, and I think that is a reflection of the culture of the organisation here compared to many other municipalities that we've worked with. It's outstanding from what I've seen.
Excellent. Thank you.
A lot of this, and some of council will remember when we were negotiating with BC Hydro, we refused to sign that community measures agreement until we closed the loop with the community, because council had put a lot of time and effort into that communication with the community. We wanted to make sure that we had hit the nail on the head before we signed that agreement. So, Philip, we only hire rock stars here. That could be part of the reason. But even when we go out and speak to people, and I recall being at the Energy Executive Association meeting in Banff a year and a half ago, and talking to people about how we manage these things and how we have our strategic plan, our official community plan. So when businesses come to town, they can take a look at everything and they can see that the follow through that's done. And I remember one comment that was made to me about they were blown away that we did this, because they had never heard of a municipality that actually used their strategic plan. Quite often it's a document that sits on a shelf somewhere, and it's nice and bright and shiny. They pull it out and they show everybody, but they don't actually follow through on it. And so that's truly sad. This is an opportunity for us to show people that we do what we say we're going to do and we follow through on it. So love the technology. I like how it's pulled things together with, and I saw on there a little Gantt chart. So I'm very pleased with it, and I look forward to seeing the strategic plan and what the staff have come up with, and how we, what we decide to do moving forward with how deep we can go on these things.
There'll be a lot of questions, I think, like for one of our strategic goals, the revitalization of the downtown. And, we can say that to the public, we're going to revitalize downtown, but they'll be able to see, what our work plans are, all the, the charrette, all the other different things that play a part, that are components of over a 10-year period or 15-year period, how we're going to transform the downtown area. So that's where this can really help council and the public to especially the public, to have confidence that we are actively engaged in revitalizing the downtown. And that goes for any one of our 5 major strategic goals.
So I don't think people really understand the charrette. I think that they see it as a word and a price tag. I don't think they understand all of the different inputs into a charrette. I mean, we're talking about ripping up streets that have some significant infrastructure underneath it. And so we have to line those ducks up in order to have them all heading in the right direction. And that includes all of our utilities, because the last thing that we really want is for PNG or Hydro or TELUS to come to us a year or two after we finish the downtown and want to replace some stuff and rip up some pavement. So are those, like, once the charrette is done, would those steps be put into this, General Manager, Acting City Manager?
Thank you, Your Worship. So a charrette process is a lot like those photos you see in leadership magazines with the iceberg.
Yes.
So the public portion of the charrette is the peak of the iceberg, but there's a bunch of real business that's going on underneath. So there's a long and very robust planning process that precedes that public-facing design phase. And what we're considering with the consultants and all the departments involved during that is how we're going to stage this work, what the infrastructure requirements under the road are, because the idea is that we will take care of anything that's required subsurface actually, it's the other way around. We're going to do the subsurface work, and we're going to take care of what we need to do on the surface as a result of that work. And the conversation with the community about what they'd like to see on that greenway is what happens on the top of the rest of the work. So it's a long process. It's already underway that has a 6 or 7 day community public piece kind of in the middle. And then there's another long process afterwards where we come up with a design.
And so we could put the steps for that design in as part of the work plan.
Yes.
Yep.
So I would anticipate that a future strategic plan and a future budget will have those items coming in a organized and planned fashion. And as each one of those items comes in, we can see how it's progressing, budget for it, handle it as part of our regular work plan, yes.
Good, perfect, thank you. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So thank you, Philip, for your presentation. I think that Envisio definitely helps align with some questions and things that I had before. As it was brought to me last week, it was a really good comment that planning and doing nothing sometimes looks like the same thing. So it's important to the city for us to show we have to demonstrate our accomplishments, and I can see how this would help accomplish that. So thank you. You just took one thing off my to-do list. So.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation. I have enjoyed the updating within our regular agendas of where everything is at and the status reports that we're getting. They're far, in my mind, far easier to read and a better updating system than what we previously had. I especially appreciate your tracking your slide number 15 with the spiders on the book and dust on the book. As there's a lot of statements, and as General Manager of Corporate Services stated, especially in regards to our revitalization. Anybody who has lived here as long as I have or longer question whether anything is actually happening, going to happen, all of that. And we have, as previous councils, done lots of planning, and it's been in action. And so I like that we are being far more public with what the action is taking place. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. Councillor Grimsrud.
Thanks, Your Worship. First off, thanks for the presentation, very informative. I appreciate the software and all the different things that we can do with it. It sounds like we're going to be able to do some really fantastic things to sort of narrow down all these objectives that we're trying to dial in for the city. Wanted to give a kudos to city staff just for we were talking about rock stars and how we're kind of leading the way in terms of actually using this in the way it was intended to be used. So kudos to all you guys for doing a great job with keeping this updated and keeping our goals and objectives going. And just a quick question, the new KPI dashboard. So this is something that we can discuss in the future in terms of what KPIs we actually want to track and what metrics we want to track for different purposes. I guess we'll have sort of a list at some point of what we're going to start tracking with that, and we'll discuss that in the future.
Actually, that's, so when, so we reviewed the strategic goals. And now we've handed it to staff, and they are creating the strategies and the objectives, the tactics to manage, and they will come back with the KPIs and the timelines.
Okay, I'm looking at a different
Which one are you
page
looking
than
at?
that, page 26, the like building trends and aquatic center usage.
So
that
all
kind
of those
thing,
KPIs
so-
will come to us from staff.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they usually think of a lot more things because they're out in the field doing the work.
I was just thinking specifically, it'd be nice to have like the metrics on a nice graph like this of all the reports that we get, report a problem, and kind of what percentage are for different things, or do we already have something like that?
So the report a problem thing is it's a different system.
Could we work that into
I think you're talking two different technologies.
If I may, just to respond to that. So quite often what you'll find from a strategy and reporting tool, you're going to have a whole bunch of systems that council uses at an operational level. So tracking number of potholes being repaired, to street signs, to street sweeping, you name it. So those operational systems will capture that data, but ideally what we want to be able to do is take that data and put it into your strategic plan and reporting, so we can align some of those metrics or KPIs back to your top level goals and objectives. So you'll tend to find that there's three different types. There's your tactical day-to-day type things that you'll be measuring at an administration level. You've got operational and strategic type measures. So we're working with administration right now, developing those, and then I'm sure there'll be a process to consult with yourselves and identifying which ones you might like to see out of all of those operational and tactical ones that are meaningful to your strategic plan as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
General Manager of Corporate Services.
Well, the acting city managers work closely with CDI Institute there, and we just recently received a number of reports from them that have a lot of interesting key performance indicators for the community. I always, from a financial background, I also have a number of financial KPIs to provide us with better perspective as opposed to how we stand with other British Columbia municipalities or even municipalities across Canada. That provides us with the comfort that we're in the right direction. And there's so many different indicators we can have from public works and roads and all the pool area that would be of interest. It's a matter of narrowing them down so that we don't overwhelm with different kinds of charts. And I get confused when I look at bar charts and graphs and pie charts, and what does it mean? We want to make it very meaningful, very transparent, and very understandable to the general public, to the council, and to ourselves.
And just by way of explanation on that too, is that if you had a top level goal of say wanting to achieve a digital transformation for your community, and part of that is you might be trying to encourage the community from going from paper-based billing for their taxes to digital and paying online, and you might have a KPI showing total number of residents paying online versus coming into the front desk. And I'm not saying for 1 second that you don't want to have someone at the front desk providing that service, But the more people you might be able to transition to the digital side might mean you don't need 2 people there, you may only need 1. And you have the ability to redeploy those resources or funds into other types of initiatives to service the community. So those types of KPIs might be established to inform some of your decision making at this level as well. Yeah.
Acting City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to also mention, through you to Councillor Grimsrud, one of the things that we'll be able to do using the Community Development Institute data is establish how far we've come from a baseline. So that first set of surveys that we've done as part of the social policy framework gives us a baseline. And while the ones that we're using in Invisio may be a smaller and much more focused group of performance indicators, we'll be able to look back and use that baseline as a place to do the next survey. So we'll be able to see whether we're moving the dial on other things that are maybe not something that we've chosen to track specifically as a KPI on the strategy.
Yeah, any trends that start happening in the community, we can nip it. You know, there's communities have to do what businesses are doing, and that's making smart use of technology. Because I certainly did not have 5 children like my mother did. We're not replacing ourselves, and that is an issue, right? And so when the baby boomers start retiring, then we're just not going to have the people that are going to be at the front desk handling everything. And the reality is there's a lot of mobile workforce in our communities, and so online and making use of technology is a wise thing to do. It's the safety and the security as we see so much of, but that's already acknowledged by the technology industry, and they're trying to manage that. So I don't have anyone else lined up to make comment here. So thank you very much for that overview. We appreciate it, and thank you for your kind words about our community. We have seen the shift over the years as we have moved to different processes that keep ourselves accountable to our community, and it's nice to have that opinion from someone else. So thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. So, no correspondence, reports from city manager, no new business, no resolution to move to a close. So we are adjourned.
Thank you.